Longtime fans of the show should be familiar with the lender formerly known as Sue Pullen, and I'm pleased to announce that she's back, fresh off a rebrand and ready to help as Sue Mackey. Sue is a certified mortgage advisor at Fairway Independent Mortgage, an equal housing lender who focuses on finding the right product for you and your needs. She has over 20 years of experience helping thousands of homeowners. Whether it's purchasing, refinancing, or even a reverse mortgage, Sue will help. Sue's licensed in 36 states now, so reach out and let Sue Mackey it happen for you. The best way to reach her is just give her a call at 520-977-7904 or in an email, spullen@fairwaymc.com. Fairway Independent Mortgage has an MLS number of 2289. Sue Mackey has an MLS number of 206048. That email again, spullen@fairwaymc.com, and that phone number is 520-977-7904. Shoot Sue an email and let her know she needs to update that address. Disclaimer time. This is where I tell everyone to lighten up. It's just a podcast. Trading is like that roller coaster at the amusement park. Thrilling, unpredictable, and potentially stomach-churning. What works for one person might leave another clutching their hat in the wind. Our hosts and guests, they're awesome, knowledgeable, full of insights, but we're not financial advisors. So don't rush to make any investment decisions based solely on our banter. Always consult with a professional or do your own research. Plus, let's face it, we like to have fun, laugh, enjoy the trading ride together. It's all in the name of good podcasting fun. So remember, take it easy, don't bet the farm, and keep your seatbelts on at all times. Thank you for listening. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the China Shop, home of the Band of Traders podcast, also sometimes known as the St. Louis Chess Club. I'm your host, Kyle. Tonight, I'm joined by Vanta Trading co-founders, Mr. Banks and Baba Yaga. Tonight's show, we'll be discussing why our panelists only trade certain products, followed by some reminiscing on the people that have helped us most on our journey into the markets. After that, we'll take a look at our past week in the Good, Bad, and Ugly segment before wrapping up with some new bold predictions. Before we check in on last week's results, let's get that self-promotional shit out of the way. So, next week, Baba and I, we're trying to record with Vico from Trade Pro Academy, but it has proven slightly difficult getting schedules lined up, so it may be a week off. There may not be an episode coming out next week if we can get that lined up. On the positive side, though, Banks and I are going to be starting a new mini-series with Eric Mason, focusing on economics and how we can use that information to inform our trading views. As always, you can follow me on Twitter at FinancialInept1. Join the Discord if you want to get updated when episodes drop. You can even listen in live on these recordings and heckle us in real time. Last but not least, the shameless website plug, bandoftraderspodcast.com. Browse that guest directory. Check out the deals and discounts we've collected over the past 3 years. Help support the show. Thanks, Baba. You guys want to get some plugs in?
Plug away.
Oh, plug away. Plugs. What's plugs? Come hang out with us. We have a free trial. We haven't talked much about that lately, but in Vanta, there's a link probably in the episode description to get you to the Discord, the combined Discord. So there's the shop side and the Vanta side, and we have people drop in from time to time. We do a 2-week free trial, and we'd love for people to come hang out. Part of that, if you so choose, includes a trader evaluation where Banks and myself give you this sheet to fill out, and that's about 8 pages long, and it's very in depth. And then we kind of schedule a call for about 30-45 minutes and go over it. Just try to help give a perspective, an outside perspective on maybe some of your strengths and some of your weaknesses.
I love it, man. Also, too, if you've already used your trial link, you can still get access to another one just by winning the M Period Challenge. So
that's true. You can win the M Period Challenge and get a free trial, and you could also, just send myself or Banks or Kyle a message on Discord if you did one before, and you maybe we had someone do one a while back, and then work got busy and they didn't trade for half the time. So they were like, "Hey, I'd love to do that again," and we're pretty chill about all that. So if you've done it before and want to come hop in for a couple more weeks, just hit us up, man. We'd love to have you come put eyes on things again. So
what did Dad always used to say? It's always better with friends.
Yeah,
always better with
friends.
Dude,
it's been fun, the crossover between the podcast, the shop side, the Vanta side, and just the communal aspect that's kind of has happened lately. It's been really fun. It's been really cool. So
Yeah, well, all those links will definitely be in the episode description. Check them out, man. Show these guys some love. All right, should we check in on last week's bold predictions?
Let's check in on last week's bold
Well,
predictions.
I know why you're excited. What did you predict again? You said no one else in your house would get sick after your kid brought home the flu, I think.
It was like a stomach bug kind of thing. Yeah, that she brought home, and it was pretty rough for 24 hours or so. And we have a big family, so usually if one person gets sick, everyone does.
Yeah.
So my bold prediction was that no one else would get sick, and we straight dodged that bullet, homie.
How? What was your
I,
secret?
dude, I don't know. My wife walked around with a Lysol can in each hand,
I
so
feel like that
maybe
was way
that's
too
what did
much.
it.
Wow. That's I was very incredulous. I'll eat crow on that one, I guess.
Well, that's funny. In the episode or description or somewhere, you said the quote like he said, "Bold, not," or what did you say?
Bold, not
Not
insane.
Bold, not
insane.
insane. Because somebody was like, "There's no chance that."
Banks, that's going to be a little bit, I think, before we see any of those rate cuts. How did your short term prediction go?
Was it my daughter?
Yeah, yep. The gymnastics
Yep.
one?
Yeah, she won first place again.
All right, so we know what you're
So
doing this week, huh?
now yeah, I gotta feel like I gotta continue that.
She doesn't have a competition 2 weeks from now, does she?
No, so she has a competition next Friday, which is why I won't be here.
All right, I was just going to say if you're going to miss a Friday and not be able to get a prediction in, that might put you in some trouble.
Yeah, I don't think she'll like me if she doesn't win first place and I don't put it out there.
All
I
right,
don't think she knows I'm doing this. I've told my wife, but yeah, my daughter doesn't know it.
No?
Nope.
How old is she? She's only like 7. She wouldn't probably.
Yeah, she's 6 turned 7 in April.
Yeah, she probably wouldn't even care.
No, not at all.
All right. Well, I haven't seen any news about Burry opening up any new shorts. Although I think I saw he closed out a semiconductor short. So actually, kind of completely wrong. He closed out one, not opened a new one. So yeah, yeah,
It happens sometimes, man.
yeah. Well, maybe we can do better this week. Have to wait till the end. We'll get to those before we close up the show. But for now, I think it's time to move on and hit our first topic. So this one comes from Discord, but has to remain anonymous. What they wrote was they wanted to know why someone would prefer NQ versus ES, under what conditions, and what are they known for. Baba, you and I were kind of talking about this a little bit earlier, and I think we opened up this discussion to a little bit wider. Like, why do you guys trade the products that you trade? What are the characteristics of some of them? And then, do you guys trade multiple products, or do you just stick with one?
Yeah, that's so which end of that question do we want to start with first?
I mean,
So it's like 4 questions in one.
normally you start from the beginning, but I'll let you hit it from whatever angle you want.
No. So what was the first part of that? Which products do we trade?
Why would someone prefer NQ versus ES, or why do you prefer the products that you prefer? Like, what makes them different? Why do they appeal to you?
Yeah, so I have traded pretty much everything at some point or another.
Mhm.
I mean, from crypto to bonds to commodities, oil, gold, silver, nat gas,
Oil,
oil,
orange juice,
RBOB, corn.
pork bellies.
No OJ. I traded copper for a short amount of time. That was basically like the cousin to silver. You know, if you're right, you're really right. But if you're wrong, you better get out. Like it's pretty rough. And I started actually with Banks and I both sort of traded CL on the front end of our trading adventure. I feel like that was, I don't really know why CL and gold were more what we were trading in the very beginning, but I settled into NQ a few years ago. And I think the main reason for me was the number of opportunities that you have on NQ throughout a day. I feel like ES, at least at that time, and I haven't paid enough attention to the ES market to know how completely true this is right now, or let's say in the last 6 months. I mean, I look at ES, but the nuance of how it moves. But I know with NQ, there's going to be a handful of opportunities to be a part of a pretty good a pretty good trade most days. Most days, NQ is not going to stay in a 40 or 50 point range. Most days, within 20 minutes of the open, you're going to have a range expansion, greater than 40 points or 50 points. And then those secondary expansions off of that are going to still yield enough points and have enough breadth to them to, even if you miss the first impulse move, there'll be a pretty saucy opportunity of second entry. So
Mm-hmm.
I feel like you're with NQ, although you can get drawn into thinking you have to buy every pullback or every dip. I feel like NQ is going to give a handful of opportunities throughout a session. And I feel like ES is a little more stringy with the repeat opportunities. Like
Yeah.
you sit around and wait for just like this price action or this certain level to hit or this certain setup, and like you better get it when it happens, because it's not going to be as gratuitous with the opportunities. So that was the main reason. That and the the directional aggression that you see out of NQ a lot of times.
Why do you think that is? Like, why are they so different?
I mean, well, it's the makeup of the index itself is one. So there's the volatility is higher because
Because it's tech.
the number of it's the market that it represents, and then also the number of companies represented in the Nasdaq. Obviously, with the S&P, it's a much broader, balanced aspect of the market.
Mm-hmm.
And then we're really zooming in on the tech sector, which generally speaking is probably second in volatility to like the biotech small caps. And you know what I'm saying? Like,
Right.
I talked to someone the other day who used to trade penny stocks, and they now trade NASDAQ. And they were like, dude, the NASDAQ moves like a penny stock.
Huh.
And so there's, something to be said for that sector, singularity of sector, and that sector is also kind of volatile, and it just creates a market that's kind of expands.
Is there a fund for bio stocks? Is there a
Um,
product that we can?
I don't. There's definitely
Not that I'm aware of.
there's definitely an ETF. There's not a futures contract tied to like a broad spectrum biotech. I know that. I don't know if there's a like an index for biotech, but
Be curious to see what that looked like if that ever got put together. But that would be like crack.
it probably would go bankrupt pretty quick.
I know. They'd be swapping out names like every other week.
It looks like there is, yeah, we could look into that, but it's going to be, I mean, in the same way that the Russell behaves the way it behaves
Mm-hmm.
because of what it represents. I think you see that's kind of the same. The thing that gives it that personality is going to be is kind of similar for NASDAQ. And I mean, these companies in the tech sector, especially with the AI stuff and chips and like graphics cards and all of that kind of stuff being such a wild space right now,
Right.
and for the last 10 years. So yeah.
And is that the only product you trade, or do you bounce between different ones?
So right now I would say I think I've traded CL one time in the last 3 months, once or twice, and I've traded UB once or twice, and I've traded ES once in the last 6 months, probably. Outside of that, it's all NASDAQ, and that's something that I'm interested to. We talked a little bit about this, but I'm definitely thinking about a closer watch on some other stuff,
Mhm.
because there is times we look back and let's say we hit that lull, or we get to a place where we're finished with a trade or we're in a runner or something, and you look back at ES or look back at NQ, I mean the Dow or even UB, and it's like, oh my gosh, that was such a clean setup. And usually Banks is taking those, in the background in silence.
Right. Yeah, I've
Not
noticed
really
that
in
Banks likes to
silence,
trade
but
a lot more variety than I think most
yeah,
of the people I've met.
yeah, and
Yeah.
I think that's I think that's something I want to kind of grow towards. The fear is the lack of familiarity with the nuance of how it moves, because I'm like super familiar with, like, if you have, I mean, there's just things that NQ does that you just expect,
Hmm.
that if you're not familiar with it, you're going to be like, oh no, and then you're right back to your entry.
Right.
Those kind of things I'm not familiar with on other products. That's the downside. The upside is sometimes their setups are way cleaner. Or if you're looking to be on the long side of equities generally, and you see the one, like, compare ES and NQ and Dow, and one of them is clearly a lot stronger.
Hmm.
So I think there probably is some advantage to what Banks is doing, and probably could stand
Well,
to look at more.
let's before kind of dive into that one. Why don't you answer the first part of that question for you, Mr. Banks? Like, which assets do you prefer and why?
Yeah, so I mean, I really prefer probably ES or NQ. I would say NQ probably just for the sense of the risk reward on those trades. And I think where that came into play was trading micros.
Hmm.
Really trading micros on ES to me just didn't make any sense. In the sense of that, when you get those small point moves and it's $1.25,
Right.
a tick, it just didn't make any sense. So those bigger outsized moves on NQ, those micro, made sense. And I think that's when I switched over. So I started with crypto, then for some reason came into futures and traded oil. Not sure exactly why. I just liked the way it moved. I liked structure on it. And then so it was oil and gold. And then from there, I went into NQ. And then actually, the first time I traded NQ, I was like, dude, how do people trade this?
Yeah, that was
This
my
is
first thought.
insane. It moves so quick. And then so I went over to ES, and then I was like, man, this is kind of boring. so that's when I kind of
Yes.
went, that's when I made the switch back. So it was kind of just that weird change of just kind of like once you understand the product
Hmm.
and understand like the nuance of we call it an NQ special. All that is just you're gonna have those times where it just doesn't really make any sense, but as much as you see it, it's coming. And these other products, I mean, I really like in the past, even January I've traded UB, crude, gold, and then the indexes. So I've traded all five of those. I don't really. I've messed around with RTY. I don't really trade a lot of RTY. I did trade a little bit of Dow last year.
I was told you guys swore off of RTY.
Yeah, you remember the how we finally just decided we messed with RTY for like a month, and we were like, you know what? No, never again. This thing
Yeah.
could die and go straight to hell.
Well, and RTY is weird because like it'll just open up and be 15 points up or 15 points down, and I'm thinking like, why would that? Why did it do that? It's like the indexes are holding steady and RTY is just on its own little rocket mission to the moon,
Right.
and it just didn't really make a lot of sense to me. Now, I mean, I haven't looked at it. I don't know, charting wise in probably 6 months. So
Hmm.
we're doing stuff differently. Maybe it would make more sense now, but yeah, I mean to that question, I mean I probably prefer NQ. My second product would probably be ES, and then probably going crude, bonds, gold if I had to pick.
Any other ones that you mix in there, or is it just those five?
Um, I mean, I look at some other products, but I mean, I've traded in the past a lot more products than that, kind of like what Baba was saying. But I've kind of like to stick to those five because I mean, the way that I think about it, you have the indexes, you have bonds when looking at that, and then usually if those two are kind of screwing around,
Hmm.
crude is probably going to have a decent setup. Gold kind of goes a little bit with the indexes and bonds in a way, but crude, I've seen it where it moves similarly to the indexes, but I would say more often than not, crude sets up and bonds set up more structural, and tend to hold those structural points that you're kind of looking at, or at least that I look at.
I've heard people say that before, especially about crude, but I've also heard it called the Widowmaker, and I wasn't quite sure what the reasoning for that was.
No, that's silver.
Oh,
Yeah, 100%. That's silver.
No, I mean, crude can be an issue when you try to jump in front of the train.
Mm-hmm.
If it's on a day like it was today, where we went, I don't know, like $4 up,
Mm-hmm.
You have spots that you are going to try to short on that, and you will just keep losing all day long. And crude just has those days, especially like down days. You'll move 50 points, 50 cents, get a 25-cent pop up, and all of a sudden we're trading 75 cents lower.
Right.
And then, those same buyers that come in and then they take their, but it's just a one-way train, and it can be that way. And that's probably my biggest advice on crude. If you're starting to look at it, is if it's moving one way, don't try to make it go the other, because it's not going to.
Dude, what do you think about like the there's a little like risk with crude in the news. I think it's a little stronger of a risk than like like broader indexes or something. So like I feel like something crazy happens overseas, crude's going to respond pretty
Yeah,
over the
I agree
top,
with
and that like if you were trading that often, how would you mitigate
Squawk box.
how do you mitigate that, because you're in crude a fair amount.
yeah. So the way that I trade, I would say I probably go quicker to break even than probably I should. And maybe it's because of that factor of I've had those situations happen,
Mm-hmm.
where I've been on the benefit of that. But I've also seen it, where all of a sudden we have something where something comes out news related, OPEC does this, or Saudi Arabia or the Middle East, one of those countries is cutting oil production or whatever. And you're right. It's the same way with like a Trump tweet,
Right.
if you're in the indexes, if you have no stop, you're screwed.
Even if you have a stop, sometimes it doesn't help.
Yeah, you're going to get slippage, that's
Yep.
for sure. Especially with the liquidity that's on crude. So yeah, the way that I trade crude is I try to get core at least off quicker,
Mm-hmm.
and then be positioned in runners, and then potentially maybe add to that on those those bigger outsized move days where you could potentially move $1 or two, and be adding to that position, but you already have your core off.
Right. When you were mentioning about it, like the one-way freight train that it tends to have, is that because it's a commodity and actually has like a physical deliverable that makes it trade differently than, like, say, something like a stock or a basket of stocks?
Yeah, probably. But when you think of like the index, or even think of like the way that bonds trade or something like that,
Mm-hmm.
like crude to me is its own product. When you think of the indexes, like, NQ, there's, I don't know how many products are inside of that product. But you're going to have your technology companies and all that. So, but in crude, when something happens news related, it tends to be just about that single product.
Mm-hmm.
So in the sense of the way that I view it is when there's those one-way trains and it's news related, they're probably going to take it to the very edge of where they want to take it. And anything in between there that you have as structure wise is probably going to get just chopped through.
Right.
But on, like, on NQ and ES, you have other products that are inside of those, Apple, Tesla, all those kind of products that those have structural levels,
Mm-hmm.
to where people watch those specific stocks. So the only thing that I can think of that makes sense with that is, you're going to have buying and selling at specific products. Now it may get pushed through, but you might get a decent sized bounce before that level gets taken.
Gotcha.
And crude and bonds, there's less liquidity in those markets as well. So it's a lot easier to move. And it's kind of own product in a sense. So when the market makers want to move that product, it makes it a lot easier to do so. And the only thing that they're pushing through is retail traders.
Oh, okay. I thought there's more pros in crude. That's why I've always stayed away from it.
Well, no, there is a lot of pros in crude, and when you think of the way that the futures market started, you're hedging your bets on certain things. So you have all these oil companies and stuff like that. But in the sense, I mean, OPEC, and a lot of, like all those, Middle Eastern countries that are producing oil are kind of running the market.
Okay, so do you have any advice or recommendations for people who want to start looking at more products, like how to start tackling that?
Yeah, I mean, I would, on the way that I look at it is I view every product the same, in the way that I'm charting up those products.
Mm-hmm.
So when I'm looking at NQ or ES, I'm looking at the same way that I'm looking at NQ and ES, I'm looking at the other products as well. So it's no different to the way that I kind of plan out the day. And with the way that we're looking at stuff now, it makes it a lot easier, um, to look at those products and just have it already prepared.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so, I mean, my main advice would just be to look at those products kind of similarly, or find a way to look at it the same way as what you're looking at the indexes. And then from there, you can kind of build around, that process.
Do you spend more time with like each one then, or are you spending most of your time still with like your core product that you trade, and then like your spare time then during the rest of the day you can kind of flip over and start looking and seeing what's going on?
Yeah. So when I'm doing my prep is I'll
Mm-hmm.
prep everything all at once, and then I'll look at ES and NQ. And typically, when there's not a trade setting up, I'll be flipping between all the products, and just to
Okay.
see where positioning is. Because I mean, you're not going to be like, unless you're watching that fully all the time, you're
Mm-hmm.
probably not looking for a specific setup. Which I'm not. I'm not looking on crude and UB, all the time on those specific setups. So the way that I'm looking at it is, I want to be looking more at the indexes, just because I think that there's more possibility in those indexes, for the trade setups that I look for.
Mm-hmm.
And then going forward is, if we're kind of at a point or where time is telling me that I need to take a pause on what I'm looking at on the indexes, that's when I go back and flip through the other products and see if there's something that's setting up on that end.
See, I like that because if nothing else, it like distracts you from trying to force entries on your main product. I think I could find that very useful for myself.
Yeah. And that was one of the, main reasons why I kind of to start do that, because, when you're watching NQ and watching ES, it's very easy to be like, well, I could find a trade here.
Mm-hmm.
I could get into a trade here and make this work.
Right.
And I think with those other products that are hanging out there, and watching those, it brings light to, I probably shouldn't be in this. Let's take a look at these other products and see if we can have an A+ setup on those products.
Yep. Baba, you got any questions you want to ask or follow ups on that?
Yeah, I think so. You just have the same, since you're generally looking to execute around the same structural area, like it develops the same way on whatever product, you kind of just have those charts pre-built and you're just flipping through them. Because we haven't really talked about this lately. Do you think, like, I'm thinking that probably I'd like to incorporate some measure of that into my work, like every morning. Like me and Kyle were talking about that the other day. Um, so how many do you think is too many? Like, how many are you looking at? Like, how many are you looking at when when you say flipping through? Are you looking at Dow, Russell, oil, UB, ZB? Like, how extensive? How many are you flipping to when ES and NQ look like trash?
Yeah. So like I'll have ES and NQ up, and then the other three products that I look through. I mean, I chart YM because I've traded it in the past.
Mm-hmm.
But the other three that I haven't really taken a trade on YM in probably 6 months, but I keep charting it the exact same way just to kind of see, the between ES, NQ, and YM, just to kind of see where those products are sitting. And then the other three products that I really go through and look at would be UB, CL, and gold, GC. And beyond
Gotcha.
that, I mean, I'll flip to RTY, but it's honestly just to see what it's doing. But other than that, I don't chart anything up on it.
Gotcha.
And like UB, I mean, you could look to, I mean, on off other products. I've always traded UB, but obviously there's other products that are in the bonds category that you could probably look at as well. That would,
Yeah.
that are going to be a little bit cheaper for risk wise, than what UB is.
UB was absolutely perfect today. Set up on our. I don't know if you look back at it, but we should have just. That's almost like confirmation because I talked to Kyle about this yesterday or
I think it was
something,
yesterday.
and yeah, yesterday we talked about this idea of possibly incorporating another couple products just to have them watch when NQ is doing what it did the other day and like just dead, which fortunately I was gone that day, but it's rare. It's only a couple, a few times a month,
Seems
but
like it always happens at
um
end period on Friday.
well, that too. But looking back this morning, even like UB was clean to start, like off the jump. It didn't wait for anything else. If I don't remember what time it set up, but it was clean. I mean, it was literally to the tick, the entry that we would normally look for. And I was just like, wow, we could have. That would have been easy. We'd have been done quick. So I would like to get a little multi-asset perspective more often than I do. So
Yeah, and if I had to recommend, let's say you're looking at NQ, just by itself now. I would recommend probably doing the exact same setup on ES just to have, and then the other two products. I like UB, but UB can be, it can be kind of um, a tough product to trade because it trades so slow compared to what you're used to. But it also, I don't believe it has micros on that as well. But I know CL and Gold do. So if you wanted to start that setup and start looking at it and actually trading it, you could look to trade micro crude and micro gold.
yeah, have you noticed? I mean, I would assume that cross asset, the same things apply. We're looking for the same setup, the
Yeah.
same structures to build.
Yep. It's like the way that we look at NQ is the exact same way that I look at every product.
Nice.
Makes sense.
There's a little bit of nuance in, like, when you look at, and when you start looking at it, you'll start to realize this. But like when we're looking at certain times where there might be like more accumulation, and kind of classifying those levels or those periods that we talk about. UB can be a little bit tougher because just of the size of movements, being that it may stay within a 30 tick range all day. So when you're looking at classifying certain things, I think once you get into it, you'll kind of build your own rule sets for each product, or that's just something that I could kind of help you with, or
Hmm.
how I look at it.
I think that sounds like might be a good workshop to try to host, or a town
Yeah.
hall maybe.
Yeah, and just bringing in a new product.
Yeah, I'd like to sit in on
Yeah,
that.
yeah. Well, too, like I would love. I mean, I still have as a primary part of what I'm. When we're in those areas of interest, I'm still looking at delta. I mean, that's on my my execution chart. How delta's building, whether I'm looking at 750 volume or whether I'm looking at 512 trades or whether I'm looking at a 1 minute chart. I'm also still looking at delta and how much is being built one way or the other as moves happen, and some of those settings would probably need to be adjusted. If I'm going to have the bigger picture structure chart, I'm going to need to have an execution chart as well. But the delta for those are definitely going to be different than the delta for NQ.
Yeah, you'll have to get used
You
to the
know,
different kind of numbers and
yeah, yeah, and like we know what size orders to watch for at
right.
NQ. That's all the stuff that makes me nervous about another product. I mean, I'm just
Well, you don't have to
I'm
trade it
so
immediately either.
yeah. No, you're right.
You
You're
could
right.
spend a couple months just observing it and learning that nuance before you start placing anything.
Yeah, but as soon as I see a beautiful setup, it's going to be hard not to
And just get yourself
just
another
go ahead
practice
and
account or an account
go
separate
buy a
for
combine just
yeah,
for
yeah.
CL. Dude, that would be a great way to really compare your
Mm-hmm.
your like Purdue does with his different strategies. He just has different combines or different
Right.
accounts tied for different strategies and only executes those in that account. That'd be a cool way to track your asset performance instead of having to remember what you traded what day or
Right.
use a service or whatever. Just have one account's my CL trades. That'd be really interesting. Segregation in the right kind of way. Be awesome.
Yeah. Thank you for the clarifier.
Yeah, I got you.
Longtime fans of the show should be familiar with the lender formerly known as Sue Pullen, and I'm pleased to announce that she's back, fresh off a rebrand and ready to help as Sue Mackey. Sue is a certified mortgage advisor at Fairway Independent Mortgage, an equal housing lender who focuses on finding the right product for you and your needs. She has over 20 years of experience helping thousands of homeowners. Whether it's purchasing, refinancing, or even a reverse mortgage, Sue will help. Sue's licensed in 36 states now, so reach out and let Sue Mackey it happen for you. The best way to reach her is to just give her a call at 520-977-7904 or in an email, spullen@fairwaymc.com. Fairway Independent Mortgage has an MLS number of 2289. Sue Mackey has an MLS number of 206048. That email again, spullen@fairwaymc.com, and that phone number is 520-977-7904. Shoot Sue an email and let her know she needs to update that address. Let's go on and move on to the next topic here. Then we'll try to get through this one a little bit quicker, so we can spend a little more time on good, bad, and the ugly. Kind of just this has been coming up kind of off and on, like as we've been doing this podcast and kind of getting to know each other. But like the people that influenced you on your trading journeys, like who were the guys that kind of really helped you along your way, whether they be social media presence or personal connections, like anybody that you guys want to shout out or tell people they should be given a follow to because they're still putting out good information and maybe they're not quite as recognized as they should be.
Yeah, I'll start.
Yeah.
The other guy that's on this podcast who I've traded with for like the last 7 to 8 years,
Larry.
He's one of them. He's one of them. No, I would put Bob in that category. To be honest, like when I got into trading, I really didn't follow much of like the social media presence or anything like that. We kind of got involved with the crypto stuff, so basically everything I learned in crypto was wrong. In the sense of what I was, what we were looking at and what we were trading,
right?
Compared to what we look at now in futures, and just kind of building up the trading process and the trading, our goals and stuff that we have now. I would say Baba is one of the keys in where I am today. And I'll give a shout out to Flary as well. I didn't spend as much time with Flary as probably you guys did, but I picked up a hell of a lot of knowledge from him. Just from being a fly in the wall and just kind of listening to the way he talks about the market. And beyond that, this, cause it's part of the problem with growth is I just don't have a big social media presence. So in the sense of like following people, there's been a handful of people along the way, that I've picked up small nuances from, but from where I'm at today, with like a lot of those people is, I still probably include a little bit of their stuff, but I don't necessarily trade off of it. But,
some of it's made its way into your.
Yeah. I would say, but the two biggest are probably Baba and Flary. If I had to put a top whatever together. And beyond that, I'll be honest, I don't know who else would be like, in the sense of just like the trading world. Mm-hmm. I'd put you in there, Cal, because in the sense it's hard to find people. Yeah, it's hard to find people that are just true in this game. To be honest with you.
I think that whole Zach Morris thing kind of
made
things look a little worse than they were.
It's tough, and finding a good community and kind of finding those people. Because I've been in probably a handful of communities that, I got to know a couple of these people, and it's like that didn't even matter. At the end of the day, you trade with, these people for, hours on, days, and, all of a sudden, you're kicked out on the street or whatever, but that's a whole nother topic. But, getting into the, just the trading aspect of it, I would say Baba and Flary. But, beyond that, just people in the game. You, Purdue, Joel, in the sense of trading wise, maybe I haven't picked up stuff from you guys, but in the sense of like, the way I kind of look at back testing, the way I look at, doing my prep, spreadsheets. I mean, I didn't do a lot of that stuff until we kind of did that merge and,
Really?
kind of started to talk around. Yeah. I mean, I did back testing, but like, I never wrote anything down. I never kept stats
Wow.
or anything. Yeah.
Shows
So I appreciate that.
Shows you how important discipline is.
Yeah.
No, I appreciate that too. I never would have guessed that you would have said anything like that. I mean, yeah, obviously my list includes pretty much everybody that's on this show. There's other people that I think have really kind of influenced me in a positive way. Vico from Trade Pro and George, those two for sure are up there. Um, Rich Friesen, I mean, I gotta throw him on that list. Eric is another good one. Eric Smolinski, ES Invests. He's more for options trading though. God, I don't know. There's been a lot, but I guess I'm in a different position because I've been talking to people for once a week for the last 3 years. So a lot more opportunities for people to come into your life and try to make an impact.
Yeah. I've only talked to Baba. So
There's also a surprisingly few amount of people on that list, considering how many people I've talked to over the last 3 years. If I'm thinking about it in that way. Baba, what about
yeah.
you, man? Who's on your top 5 list?
Top five. Well, I actually have a list of a lot more than five, but trying to think like if you were talking about people who just have inspired me to some extent,
Yeah,
or people who I've learned technical things
I think it
from.
could be either.
I think it's in there, but the point I'm making is someone doesn't have to be a fantastic
Mm-hmm.
technician to still embody some characteristics or some piece of trading, or even like their approach that's like really
Mm-hmm.
great, and it's something that you can learn from. I think in this space, everybody wants to point at other people as not knowing what they're doing, and I'm guilty at times of being like, oh my gosh, like what the freak did you hear, like what that, I think to myself, like, I can't believe somebody would be looking at that as a reason to buy or sell. That's like,
Like you must have been watching Top Step TV today.
I wasn't gonna say it, but
I'll say it for you.
I did message Banks, and I was like, "Oh my god, this is like stepping back in time 10 years, my guy." I mean, or 8 years. It was really. But the thing is about that you realize that, like, Banks says this all the time, that you can trade anything,
Yeah.
and as long as you do it the same way every time and learn the nuance of it, you can use it and be
Yep.
profitable. It's the real variable is you and your emotions and your discipline and your self mastery and all of that stuff. That's really that's really the that's really the divider between. I mean, that's really the thing that makes
Yeah.
difference.
If you've been practicing and learning for the last 2 years, you have enough information to be able to develop a successful system at that point, I would think.
Yeah, most anything you can find some kind of edge
Yeah.
in on some time frame or another. And it can be simple or complex, but yeah, it really does. I mean, I've seen it in my own trading, and from the last episode where we talked about some of the newfound pressures create an environment, like a mental landscape that's just different
Mm-hmm.
than it ever has been, and that's a new challenge and new adjustment. But it's also part of the deal. As soon as there's progress through that, and there's going to be something else. I mean,
It's always
it's a
something.
never ending journey. Yeah, I mean, you don't get into this for it to be like a prop your feet up kind of easy. I mean, there's something that's fun about the challenge, and you can't really plan for what the next thing is that's going to be difficult or whatever. But as far as people that inspired me, I go all the way back to like small cap days. I wish I knew who this guy was or where he is. So if someone listens to this and they were in this room, which it's likely because it was big, it was a free room. But dude, message me on Twitter or find me, join Discord or something, and I'd love to just like I'd love to have a 5 minute conversation with this guy. There was a guy in a room. He called himself King.
Mm-hmm.
And it was, back in it was, 7 years ago at least. But he was big into, he did a lot of fading of small cap stuff, and he was, He was always hanging out on the Heikin-Ashi chart, which is,
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I don't look at that at all, but he was always trading that, and seemed to have a propensity to the short side in that market or whatever. But I mean, he was the first person I was ever around that was super bold about like what he was doing and what he thought was going to happen, and just let it all hang out, good, bad, and ugly. Eat it live in front of people, and it was a free room with just a bunch of people trading together. And there was a like this. He was like, no matter what happened, he was just always going for the next trade, the next thing. Like he never seemed to.
Never phased him. They never rattled
Yeah,
him.
yeah. It was so steady. I mean, he was just take a stop or eat a stop or lose whatever, and just next setup, next market, next trade, next day or whatever, later that day. It didn't matter. So that was cool. I thought, Banks, that you would have said Trader Trash was on your list. I mean, he's
Yeah.
been in the game for a hot second, and
I missed that one.
Trader
yeah,
Trash.
and like we need to have him on the show. I messaged him about coming on the show and just talking about his journey, because it's just so interesting. He has a room. We were there for a while. I'm still in it. It's a free space. And dude, Banks, so many of the same OG guys that were there.
Still there.
If you pop in over there, it's the same dudes trading together. It's hilarious. It's awesome.
Should do a crossover then.
And they do a lot of different. They trade different style, different approach to structure and plan stuff. But one of the things I learned from him was he would always have like previous all-time highs marked or previous weekly highs marked.
Yep.
And I just felt like his approach to that side of it was really organized. Like he had one chart that was seemed to be dedicated to all of that. It was just all old significant highs or lows. And then he would use those as targets. And that was a long time ago. And I feel like that was just something about that organization made me think like I need to slow down enough to have that information available to see. Because I didn't at that point. I was on a 5 minute or 1 minute or 15-minute chart trading the next whatever was about to happen. And then the obviously Leo from back then, not OFL Leo, although we spent some time together, but Leo from that room with Trash, just a good trader. He traded gold all the time, and he was a guy that it wasn't his technical. I mean, he had a sharp eye and everything. It wasn't all his approach, but he was always encouraging me to expand my targets, like to expect more out of the market. I always saw him bagging these larger trades and felt like, man, how do you how do you do that? And this was back when I was like, if I could make $100, the world would be a different place. And seeing him do that made me realize it's possible and believe that I could do it too. So again, so much of the ones that I'm listing are more inspirational attributes that they carried, not so much the technician that they were, which, not that they weren't great technicians, but in their own way. But you know what I'm saying?
No, I think it just goes to show what the hardest part to learn is, or maybe the part that's where you really need to get that inspiration. It's not going to come from a new setup or new strategy. It's going to come from watching somebody show you what's possible.
Yeah, it like expands what you think can be achieved.
Right. Well said, man.
Yeah. And then like some of the people I traded with a lot, obviously I traded with Flary for a long time. Before, Vanta Trading, before you trade. I mean, we traded together for a year or more before any of that. And same thing, like his approaches, like I would say more on the technician side, and then his honesty. Like we've shared a lot of battle wound stories and bad days and good days, and like just having someone that has been through the same things that you've been through, both now for me, like in the fact that he's traded professional, like as a main source of income for a hot second, being able to kind of press in to him as I'm bridging over into that has been helpful. Cause we talked about like looking at a trade through the lens of what, like the technical expectation, like the anticipation that this move on this setup should yield a move to this level. And so we're cutting our knees out from under us if we scale ahead of that level, but then also seeing that you can't be blind to the P&L and going like, that's, whatever,
Yeah.
that's a groceries or that's a house payment. Like I could go ahead and just have that taken care of. There's a real, some figuring out with that. And then I got to say, John Doe, who's in our room and hangs out a little bit, it's always just been so sharp. He's just a sharp trader. He's always thinking.
He's going to be on soon, right?
We got to get him on. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, he is just, he's a pattern genius, dude. And whether it's watching the flows in the options market like he used to all the time, or whether it's, price action on the NASDAQ or whatever, I've just always appreciated that about John. I feel like
he always seems to be in it like the nut low. Like, how does he get those entries?
And what's funny too is John gave me my nickname because of that very thing. When we used to trade together, we traded together for probably almost a year every day, and he said that like, oh, you're like a sniper, you're whatever, which I'm not. But then I was really trying to be like, I wanted that glory moment of being like, I'm short from like 2 ticks off the high. And so that's how the Baba Yaga thing got started. I did not pick it. He did.
Can't pick your own nicknames.
No, you can't do that. I echo Rich Friesen for sure. First person that I incited emotion out of me with regard to trading, like listening to him talk to other people and the things he said. I never had like been emotional in that way. Like I've been emotional because I was frustrated or on a really bad day or a really tough streak, but never in the development side of introspection and stuff like that. And then this guy deserves a lot of, like, people need to go follow him. They need to go watch his videos. If you're interested in market profiling, TPO, auction market theory, Charles with the Brigade. So with the pirate traders, if you've ever heard of him.
Just make sure I get the link for his Twitter profile, and I'll make sure it gets linked.
He doesn't do a ton on Twitter. YouTube is pretty active. He live streams every once in a while, but he has a Discord. It's very affordable. I'm not trying to like farm everyone out of Vanta to go there, but he would be a great follow. And as much on the technical side, if you want to learn like TPO stuff, he's great in TPO technician. But then also listen to his trading live. Listen to how settled and emotionless almost and just steady he is, and the confidence he has in the approach that he brings, whether it's different than mine or different than yours. That is what makes him a capable trader. And he made the transition to full-time trading during COVID. He's got a video where he talks about it. And I asked him, he probably doesn't remember this, but I asked him what that was like. And or either someone did or something. I know that I had messaged him about it, but he talked about it in that video or another one. And he was like, you almost have to trick yourself into believing that you're excellent. Like, he's like, I was kind of unsure of myself starting out. I'd always traded, in addition to a job. And when I was like, all right, I'm going to make a run at this, I almost just had to like tell myself that I was awesome and like believe it.
Right.
And then just act accordingly. So, Charles with the Brigade, if you hear this, which you probably won't, but, I listen to your stuff all the time, and I think you're legit. You should come on the podcast sometime. Let us pick your brain.
Send me that. I'll make sure that link gets in there, and I'll try to message him, see if we can't get him on. You never know.
Yeah, he's cool, man. He's chill. And he does bonsai plants too. That's his other thing.
Oh,
bonsai trees, like that's his...
Like Mr. Miyagi.
Yeah, like that's his deal. Like one time he was doing a live stream. He was like, hold on a second, delivery guy's here. And it was like a new bonsai tree that he had ordered. He had to go get from the delivery guy. And then shout out Macro Tactical. Listening to him sling the time for the amount we traded together for a while with a group of guys. And you want to talk about someone who just goes with the flow, literally. Like listening to him trade live and the lack of care he has about taking a loss or not. Like, it is just, he's in, he's out, he's short, he's long, but not in this, that sounds flippant, but he's just
flippant, right.
Yeah, he is just he just rolls with it, man. So I've always appreciated that. Like, there's a boldness to his approach that's set in years of experience and tutelage under other great traders that he mentions, but yeah, his ability just to fire, man, just to pull the trigger, like just gets it. So that's it. I'll stop. But a lot of those people, inspirational in different ways, but definitely a part of this adventure I've been on. And of course, last but certainly not least, the guy on the other side of the screen kept me alive, kept me in the game. Not really alive, but kept me in the game.
Kept you in the game for sure. You
Kept me
shared
in the
that story.
game. You know, kind of believed in me when I didn't believe in me, and still has continued to do that through the years at different times. And I mean, I think everybody has to have somebody like that for this all to work out. I mean, you got to have somebody
That
that
sounds
gets it.
like a topic for next week, I think.
What's that?
We might have to revisit that one. Like how important it is to have someone believes in you.
Oh, it changes everything.
Yeah. But I think we're getting close to the
Yeah,
end of the topics here, so we probably should move on and do some good, bad, and ugly.
let's do it.
Who would like to go first?
Mine would be short this week. The good from this week, I guess there was a couple good trades in there. I think the good from this week, actually, though, it was about trading, but it was some conversations that I had
Mm-hmm.
this week. You were a part of one of them, and
Yeah.
you were a part of one of them, Banks, and part of some of them are recorded. You can listen to that on last podcast that came out. Some of it we didn't record and use live. That was just real cool to have a member of our room contribute in such a substantial way by just asking some really cool questions.
Really
And
good questions.
yeah,
Yeah.
so that was my good. I think that was by far my good. Bad was probably today, just because we took 2 stops for no reason, because I wasn't, again, paying attention to the news that was coming.
Oh,
At
you know that if something shows up on the bad twice though, it can't be a bad anymore. That's gonna be an ugly.
Is it? Okay, it's an ugly. That's
Yeah.
happened multiple times. So that wasn't even I don't think that was a red label news either. I don't think it was only orange.
No, it was like pending home sales or something.
Yeah, but what happened is the market was kind of waiting.
Right. Yep.
And everyone that was anticipating long, which was the trade, we were looking for to be long, and we had if you, I mean, you were there, so I mean, I think that like the low of the day at that point was the midpoint we really wanted to trade off of if we traded to and held.
Yeah. It was the Euro mid.
Euro, yeah, and we wanted to. So once we got inside that candle high, we wanted to see us get down and trade to that, and then evaluate if we stuff there. Then like the upside move would be anticipated to be an outside move that would
Mm-hmm.
trade to the prior session's range high, which we traded through to the T, right? But pending that news, we were tickling around some areas that were just above that. So we were fishing for a long, take a stop, waited a few minutes, took another one, took a stop. And then I was like, what are we waiting on here or something? He looked and it's like, oh my God. Or Bank said, like, we have news
Yeah.
at 10. And I'm like,
Yeah.
well, then why aren't we not doing anything else till after the freaking news? This is the second time that this happened. So that was the ugly and the bad. It was like, I was trading small size on Fridays. Obviously, it was micros. It wasn't a big deal, but it was just those little things like that. The market is tricky. It's just a tricky little devil, because you're completely right
Mm-hmm.
about what is about to unfold, and your positioning without the awareness of like the news and what was kind of creating that kind of grindy, choppy scenario preceding that. Just ended up kind of being annoyed with that. But so that was the bad and ugly, I guess, all clumped together.
I was thinking about mine. I had a tough time writing up a good this week. My trading this week, I don't think was all that great to begin with. But I think I can take some good away of like, I've had the right idea a lot of the times. It's the execution of that, I think, is where I've been like, it's the lack of patience. And I think that some of the freewheeling that I was doing with that Top Step X account last week kind of came back and bit me a little bit today.
Got in your blood a little bit.
I knew it was going to happen. I was just curious how it was going to manifest. And I kind of like recentered in the afternoon today and managed to kind of turn things around. Probably not the best way. I flipped over to micros because our middies because we had those free resets coming. I was like, all right, well, you know what? Let's quit this death by 1,000 cuts thing. Like you'd mentioned another conversation we had.
Yeah.
I was like, let's go ahead and see what we can do with one mini at a spot where like I really want to get it. So I waited for like the setups to show up on my Sierra Charts account. I had it pulled up on 2 different pages. And when I saw the spot I wanted, I fired my shot and I took it to the fruition. And like I don't know, it felt pretty good. So if I can kind of build off of that, I think I might be onto something here.
Well, yeah, and it's nice that the market rewarded you for following your process to a T.
Mm-hmm.
It would have been annoying if you followed your process to a T and took a stop. You'd be like, "Oh my gosh, I can't win." Ugh. But it's nice when you slow down, you know, take it all in, wait patiently for something that you have precedent for, and take that and that, and you get rewarded. I mean, it's not about the P&L, but it's the process
Right.
yielding what the expectation is such a satisfying thing. So that's definitely a good.
And then the other thing I was doing really well was moving my stops to break even, like Banks does. I think I'm finally starting to learn from that.
Yeah.
Where like I can see when the move is starting to happen, and now I'm starting to recognize like, okay, if it does not go and hit this take profit, I do not want to be in this trade anymore.
Yeah, and that is a freeing feeling, but
Mm-hmm.
that's a hard one, man. That's hard for me.
Yes.
That's hard for me. Like
Yep.
I'm not a quick to break even guy like that. I probably
I'm
should be
not
more.
usually either, but I've been kind of liking it.
But you're right. Like you're right. When the areas we're trading should be sharp corners.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the expectation is movement. I mean, I think a way to think about that, and I'm starting to write notes on like on the notepad. I'm showing him a notepad. So
Yeah.
not on this part of the notepad, but on this part,
Uh
I'm
huh.
starting to write a couple of key things each morning, to just remind me. And I think that idea is what I'm going to start writing on there. Is that the anticipation is that this moves with a certain pace. I'm looking
Right.
for a certain pace to come out of this. So if I get stopped out at break even because that pace doesn't come, and then we mill around and then go, well, that's fine, right? Because
Yeah.
because what I wanted to see and what I anticipated was that pace. It should get me away from this entry quick enough, and so I,
Yep.
I really like that. I think that's a good takeaway as well to pick up on.
I still have an ugly to say here,
Don't
and
say it. Don't say it. Just skip it.
it's
I'm just kidding.
no, I have to because it's the show's all about being honest, right? I have slacked off on my journaling this past week, and as big of a proponent as I've been for that, I've got a lot of work to do this weekend, journaling every single trade that I missed over the last 2 or 3 days before I can take another trade.
That's going to be insightful for you.
I hope so.
If some of the trading you said you kind of got a little willy nilly with it,
Yeah,
it's going to be. I wonder how you'll think about that on the backside. That'd be a good. I'd love to follow up.
I can tell you how I'm going to think about it because I can tell you right now I don't want to do it. It's because I don't want to face it. So that means that obviously I'm not going to like it, but you have to, right? If you don't, you're not going to learn.
Yeah. Hmm.
All right, Banks. What about you, man? How was your week?
Um, Overall, it was good. I had a green week, so that's my good. But I'll focus more on the bad and the ugly, and I think that they both come from today. Um,
Oh, yeah.
which I talked about this on chat. The bad was and I'm trying to figure out which one is worse to say. um,
Really bad.
I'll say the bad is the managing of the trade that I was in. I went a little bit more out of my process to the P&L mindset.
hmm
Took 2 stops, which I'll talk about in the ugly, which was exactly what Baba talked about. But the just poor management of the overall trade setup. We had it perfectly kind of marked. It played out kind of what I thought was going to play out. I just happened to take 2 kind of dumb stops before that and got it back to break even on the day. And and made a little bit of money, and then kind of got out to solidify that that profit, didn't want it to come back against me, and then basically looked for another re-entry, and I just never got it. Which in reality, I said this on chat, this really should go another 20-30 points higher, which is where I should have been taking it, and just not thought of the P&L aspect of it. But you live and you learn.
It's like Baba said earlier, you can't really it'd be nice if we can separate ourselves from that, but you can't do that completely.
No. And then the ugly was just not noticing time. In two scenarios, and Baba talked about this. Took two stops right before I think it was new home sales today.
Yeah, that's what it was.
Kind of got long in the 30 spot, and I even said this. I said if we break below this, we're probably going to that 06, 09 area. The low when that happened was 04. And that's where the trade that I talked about came in at was 10, basically, when we came down there. But just took two not needed entries or not needed stops before news.
Right.
But that's what I've noticed. I mean, I've noticed this. My stops, and I've said this on chat, are typically in areas where it's like those micro changes. It's like not noticing that the change is coming, like within a minute or two. And it's I would say most of my stops that I take are just kind of mistakes on my part, in the sense of just not being and I don't know if it's not being prepared or not noticing, because I think the trade setup is there, but the way that I'm entering trades is more time based.
Well, that's still new to you too, though. So I mean, some of that just like
true.
getting used to thinking of it in that way.
True. But the ugly was definitely just the lack of awareness of the time and what was coming when those stops were taking place.
See, I like how Baba has that timer on his chart that tells him when the next change is happening. Maybe that's something that you can look at trying to incorporate, just to kind of keep that in the back of your mind when you got the charts up. Have it right there on the chart.
Yeah, I've actually started to just kind of like remember those micro changes, just because they're the exact same thing every day.
Right.
But the news wise, I mean, that's the thing, is I knew the news was then. I knew it was in 5 minutes. I just literally said that and then took a stop as I was saying.
It sounds like we need a checklist, morning checklist, so we can
pre-flight checklist, man.
Yeah.
Well, and I used to check news first every time, and I've gotten out of that. But we need to start with news on the kick, and then honestly, in that moment of clarity, before anything's on the line, before we're in anything, we probably ought to make a decision in a moment of chill. Like, there's been times we've talked about this where we've been burned by entering before news, but then there's been times where entry sets up and it's freaking perfect.
Yeah.
The news in 15 minutes, and you're like, I don't want to be in a trade with news. And then that's like news never looks back. That entry was fine for the rest of the day. So I think we need to it's hard to say, okay, no trading before a 10 o'clock news event, but maybe if there's a perfect setup, like if we'd attack 906 pre-news 10 minutes before, 5 minutes before, maybe that's the trade. If you're going to put some risk on before the news, it's there and not in that intermediate spot at 40 or 30, whatever, 30 something, 32 or 36 or
yeah, you almost need to be in an entry where you can get your stops up to break even or plus some.
Yeah, or just the hardest, sharpest spot you have for the day.
Yeah.
You're like, okay, if we get there, all right, I'll entertain it. And that was that low. I mean, that was going to be, that was the spot we felt like was pretty key. So, yeah, Banks, have you? And this is like a side though. When you were in, because I know the trade you were in, we talked about it, and you were like, "Oh my gosh, you left." It could have been a money on the table with that one.
I did too.
So two thoughts. One would be, I just wonder if you thought about this, like when you know your P&L is red, but like on the week you're still fine. If you just lay that drawdown against the backdrop of the week, would that be helpful to like settle you to to be okay with letting that runner go or letting that rest of that size be a part of it, you know?
I mean, it does. So that was not on a cash account. That was on on a funded account with Top Step. So for
Oh,
that
yeah.
standpoint, you're always against a daily draw. Um,
Yeah.
so on that,
Yeah. Good
it's kind
point.
of your fight, and then also you're fighting a trail too because it's end of day trail. So yeah, I mean, you take you have it come all the way back up to break even on the day, and you take it back to where your stop is, and all of a sudden you went from minus 1200 to zero to minus 1200 again, and all of a sudden you're staring at the trail again at kind of where you were at that entry. So yeah, I mean, I've thought of it that way, and even too thinking of it like, what if I took, because I was in 3 contracts on that trade.
Yeah.
So in reality, I ended up like a couple $100 with that trade, and I just called it a day then. But from where I was to where that should have went, that's the difference of being up a couple $100 and being up a couple $1,000.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Because the core shouldn't have come off where it did. The core should have came off 20 points higher. And then
Hmm.
there was a runner on that as well.
So you know that one of the things when we're trading on the right side of trend that did come out of listening to the Top Step thing, trying to filter through all of that. But one of the guys talked about when he's scalping, he's gonna try to close those trades on the max excursion for the entry. So he's gonna scale into strength, and he's gonna, like, the highest price he sees while he's in the trade, he anticipates that whenever he's fully out, like, he'll be scaling at highs. He's not sliding to stop up and trailing it on a scalp type trade that might be counter trend, but on a trend type trade, he talked about the idea of scaling whatever swing lows, 5-minute swing lows, you know 15-minute swing lows or whatever. And so even in those situations where it's important to capture some of the profit, one of the things he was talking about is on a trade that's with strong trend, he doesn't anticipate his runner to be closed at the highest price he's seen, because he's going to try to give it a chance to go the rest of whatever time frame, the day or the hour or that 4 hour candle. So he's going to trail it up, and so the anticipation is that that one will get stopped out on a pullback, but he gave it the chance. Does that
Yeah.
make
Yeah.
sense? Like, I
Yeah.
had never thought about it quite that way. I like to think of my with trend trades as also top tick exits, but in reality, to get the most out of that runner, that's something that maybe be worth like back testing a little bit, or just looking back, or even keeping in the back of the
Yeah.
pocket.
If the trend's holding, like the short term or short time frames, like you might as well trail with it, especially if it's real strong. If they're buying every single pullback at like
Yeah.
the first available opportunities, then yeah.
Yeah, and you Banks, you do such a good job of defining those edges too.
Yes.
When we're in a move, like, you do such a good job of saying, well, they if they lose this, then we're going to here, and like maybe lean into your ability on that,
Yeah.
because you definitely. And then if it's like, well, if they lose this, if the lose this spot is too far down for your comfort level, then yeah, okay, scale ahead of it. But if the lose this spot is within reason for where you are in the P&L, like, maybe you get to capture 20% or 30% more of that or something. I don't know. It's just a thought. I mean,
Yeah.
obviously you're doing just fine, but
No, I mean, there's always room to grow on that. I mean, because we talk about those legs of moves, directional wise. Um, the only problem with that one is that we were kind of one timing down. So I was kind of going against where we were, because, we went from the
yeah.
highs and we were kind of coming down, and we really couldn't get any acceptance above 70, then above 60, above 50. And then we had that final move down. And then basically we popped all the way back up to where our original entries were trying to develop.
Yep.
And basically, and that's why I said on chat, like, they cannot pull this back at all, because I thought my entry was probably in risk.
Yeah. Well, that makes
That's what
sense.
kind of made the decision. And then once we broke above that, you know, they could have pulled it down another 30 points to where I would have been comfortable there, but I still wouldn't have been green. So I made the decision, being that it's Friday, to, I kind of made a mess of a Friday, which I try not to, and just got it back to.
Well, and I think the other takeaway is that you didn't have to go into the weekend being annoyed or frustrated.
That is worth a lot.
And there's something to say for that mental capital and that like emotional equity being preserved. So, I'm not saying it was the wrong decision at all.
Yep.
Well, it was because we went 100 points higher, but
the hindsight's always perfect.
That's true.
True. Right. What do you guys say? Let's get a bold prediction done. We can wrap up so we can get Banks to bed.
Yeah.
Okay. Who do we
lead us off, Kyle?
You want me to start? All right. This is gonna be pretty bold. This one is gonna be on M period challenges. I think Joel is gonna win not only his first M period challenge next month, but I think he's actually gonna win 2.
Ooh.
He will win 2 M period challenges in the month of February. That's my prediction.
Wow.
I was going to say 1, but I said no. We got to be bold. I'm going 2.
Got to be bold. Well, I think that's fantastic. I hope it comes true. He's
just your son can't play then.
Trading well. Yeah, we'll keep Briggs out. Yeah, we'll keep him off the keyboard. I think some people quit the other day when he was.
No, there was a few. Yes.
I mean, he's 10 years old, so. Dude, he came. Okay, we can cut this if we need to, but he came in here today and saw the M period trades. Actually, he was playing outside. He looked at the chart. He looked at the larger time frame chart that showed the entries and exits. Then he went over to the small time frame chart, and then he goes, and he held his hand up to give me 5, and he was like, "You saw it struggling to go back up there, so you thought it would go down, didn't you?" And I was like, yeah, sort of. But it was just hilarious. He looked at it, pointed at the P&L, pointed at the thing, and high-fived me. And I was like, what is life? And he's 10 years old. He was jacked, dude.
I can't wait. I'm going to give him my login credentials and let him trade one of my accounts.
Just give him. He's got to have a little drawdown room.
Yeah. Banks, what's yours, man? What do you got for us?
So
we know what the first one is.
Yeah, the first one's my daughter. I got to go with that one. I'm superstitious now.
So I'll say 2 for 2 on that?
Yeah, 2 for 2. So I'm gonna say that she's gonna win first next Friday. That's why I'm not gonna be here. My bold prediction for this week is we talked about this, Apple. That we finally trade above 200.
Ooh, you think earnings is gonna be the catalyst that does it?
I don't know. I just needed something for tonight, so I figured. We're triple topping up here. I'm hoping that we just go up.
I broke out of that big old flag it was sitting in. It held that 182 support really well. Earnings are coming out on Thursday. Its previous all-time high now is what, not 199.66?
Yeah, 199. I'm hoping that we at least get the peak above at least.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty good prediction. I like that one. Apple above 200. Trades above 200 next.
Trades above 200.
Oh man, it's got.
I wonder if I should put another bet on this one too, like I did with the football games. Yeah.
Just throw some calls on Monday for Friday above 200. Yep. Call it good.
What do you got for us, Baba?
All right, man. So this is bold-ish. I mean, I think it'll count. So we have played in 2 trivia nights in the last 2 weeks, my wife and I. And we've went to 2 trivia nights and won them both. Okay. Mm-hmm. So, and there's another one.
Who won them for you guys?
Okay, my wife. Right. She's a boss. Okay.
and what were the topics?
At trivia. Dang, bro. It's like that.
You have to play it like that. Huh?
All right. So the first one was Friends. Yep. I actually went with somebody from the room. Actually, me and my wife, and he and his wife, which is cool because he trades with us in the mornings, and we got the family together and did a little trivia thing. So we won that one. My wife answered everything. That was Friends, the show Friends, the TV show Friends. And then this week was Gilmore Girls trivia, boys. And you can judge me all you want, but in college, I watched that with my wife, and they sucked me in. What can I say?
Hey, my wife has been trying to get me to do it. I just can't deal with the fact they talk too fast for me. It just sounds unnatural.
Yeah, it's a paced show, that's for sure. But
I did like the Mrs. Maisel one. That's the same writer.
Yeah. Okay. So there's another Friends trivia that I am not going to go to. That my wife is going to go with my sister, and it's at a different place, and I bet they win that one as well.
Oh God, yeah. I would not. I think it would be more bold to say that she loses it.
But I think she's going to win.
I know.
but it's also bold. 3 trivia. 3 in a row, dude. That's getting statistically improbable.
So we need you and your wife to join our trivia team, because I got all the general knowledge. My wife does all the linguistic stuff. Like, she knows words like you wouldn't believe. But we're terrible at pulp culture.
Oh, yeah. Well, it's very niche for my wife. It's going to have to be Boy Meets World, Gilmore Girls, Friends.
Oh, I used to watch a shitload of Boy Meets World.
Yeah, those shows would be the ones that we could slay out. But I don't really know much. I know those shows. I don't really know much anything else popular, like
except Keanu Reeves.
Except I've watched a lot of shooting shows. Like,
speaking of which, they just put all the John Wick movies on Max. I was watching them when the wife goes to bed.
Yeah, dude. I almost slipped up and said they're such good movies. I think they're just fun movies.
Yeah,
it's just fun adventure, guns, fire, just crazy.
It's what the 80s used to be when they were pumping out movies.
Yeah, don't give me some. I don't need a mind-blowing storyline with a bunch of twists and turns. Just have somebody kill somebody's dog and hurt his feelings, and then him go on a rampage. Or shoot his dog. I want to watch
Denzel Washington try to get a kidnapped girl back and murder his way through Mexico.
Casual cut off a guy's fingers, taped to a steering wheel, no big deal. Yeah,
exactly.
More of this, please.
All right, so Baba's not so bold prediction is his wife makes a 3-peat.
Sorry.
But the same night, Baba goes and plays the Golden Girls. Is that?
Oh, man. Did I say Banks was influential? I was kidding.
No, right?
I don't even like the guy.
All right, well, I got Joel winning 2 M-Period challenges next month. Baba's got his wife getting a 3-peat in the trivia night. Banks has got not only his daughter getting a 3, because we got 2 3-peats going on here.
That's true.
He's also got Apple trading above 200 next week. I think that's going to do it for today's episode, though. So I would like to say thank you to Baba and Banks here for joining me this evening, and everybody who listened, who stuck around to the bitter end. Please show our panelists some love. Check out those links in the show notes. We'll make sure we have all those people that we talked about in the previous segments, too, if you want to go check out some of their stuff as well. You can go check out the new. I keep saying check out. You can. What's another word for check out?
Go give a look or a listen.
Yeah, go look at the. I don't like that. Visit. Fuck.
How long these need to be outtakes?
Oh God, I know, right?
Go. Show some love.
I did that already. Show our panelists some love. Check out their links in the show notes. Remember to check out the new combined Discord where you can trade with us during Friday M periods, listen to these live recordings, discuss strategies, and backtesting with the best Discord community around. We'll also have links for the favorite follows that we talked about earlier, those people that were influential in our lives, if you want to go listen to some of their stuff. We will be back soon with another exciting episode, hopefully as impressive as winning 2 back-to-back trivia nights in a row. But till that day, smash that 5-star rating, leave a review, and have a wonderful day. This podcast is intended for informational and educational purposes only. It does not constitute financial or investment advice and should not be construed as such. The hosts, guests, and contributors of this podcast are not licensed financial advisors, brokers, or professionals. Any trading or investment decisions made based on the content of this podcast are solely at the listener's discretion and risk. Trading and investing in financial markets carry inherent risks, and past performance is not indicative of future results. Listeners should conduct their own research and seek advice from qualified financial professionals before making any financial decisions. The views, opinions, and information shared in this podcast are those of the individual contributors and do not necessarily reflect the views or policies of the podcast creators or associated organizations. Produced by China Shop Productions.